The following conversations are taken from our channel membership exclusive weekly live show that we do on Saturdays from 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time called Members Talk Live. Find out how you can become a member and appear on the show. All of the information is down in the description below, as well as all of the links to the channels of today's guests. Check them out, and I hope to talk with you very soon. Today's topic, guys. Today's topic is Ahsoka, the spoiler discussion for episodes 1 and 2 that have just aired on Disney Plus. And at the moment, right now, I have joining us Frank. What's going on, man?
Good, good. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. And we also got Jonah.
Better late than never. Woo!
It's great to see you guys. It's great to have you here. So I'll just start off right off the bat with I'll start with you, Frank. Going into Ahsoka, obviously coming off of Rebels. What was your experience with Rebels? Do you have any experience with Rebels, or have you never seen the show like I haven't?
No, I did see the show. I've seen the show during the pandemic age. I binged. I didn't binge the whole series because it's 4 seasons also, and I had to search up online as far as like the essential piece because I'm like that. And so, but when I looked at the watch list of the episodes, I can't remember from where, but it listed almost the entire thing from what I've noticed. And mind you, this was like after I've also binge watched the Clone Wars just to become familiar with the character Ahsoka, because that's where she originated from. And just seeing her with this new group of this very very driven and very energetic Guardians of the Galaxy kind of group, it was just fun. It was just fun to watch, and really great to see Ahsoka, just seeing her in this other places of the Star Wars lore. And I was just excited for this show to just go ahead and premiere. So
Nice. Well, you've done more homework than I have because I did not at all get interested in going back and watching this stuff with her beforehand. I have seen the Clone Wars movie though, which was not a great introduction to her, so that probably hurt it a little bit more than it should have.
I know.
What about you, Jonah? What's your experience with Rebels?
So, first of all, I'll apologize ahead of time for anybody listening if there's some visual issues working on the Wi-Fi, getting that fixed. But for me, I was a Clone Wars aficionado. Every single season, every single episode, I binged it. I loved it. I watched it multiple times. Now, Rebels, on the other hand, was one that I watched once several years ago and then forgot about. Legitimately, like if there was an episode I liked where I think one of them was when Ahsoka fought Darth Vader, I'd go back and look it up on YouTube and watch it. But I would never go back and rewatch the original. It was just not for me. That does not mean it's bad. But for me personally, I was like, I would rather watch Clone Wars, the season, or the TV seasons, not the movie, as you said, Zach. But I would find myself wanting to go back and watch Clone Wars instead of Rebels, and that just led to where I am now. We're going into Ahsoka. I have the basic idea and knowledge of Rebels. I know who some of the characters are and know what most of the motivations are, but I didn't quite come in with the mastery of it that I normally do when I'm coming into these Star Wars projects.
Interesting. So what was it about Rebels that didn't hook you like it did Clone Wars?
So the Clone Wars was 7 seasons, and it did start out slow, just like Rebels, but it picked up much quicker. I think Rebels had 1 to 2 seasons where it really took a little bit to get its feet going. It definitely played more of the child-friendly aspect at the beginning because I think it premiered on Disney XD, and so they couldn't do many of the things that they did with the Clone Wars. So they had to play it safe for the beginning. And I liked it when they started to pick things up around season 2 or 3, but by then I was already I wasn't as emotionally connected to these characters as I was with the Clone Wars, because I'm a homebody. When it comes to Anakin, Obi-Wan, Count Dooku, Darth Sidious, sign me up, I'm there. And Ahsoka grew on me in the Clone Wars to the point where she was my favorite character. And I think seeing her in Rebels close towards the end specifically, that was some of the best parts of Rebels to me, but it was because of a cameo, not so much of the show itself.
All right, that sounds fair enough. So So I have no experience with Rebels. I was telling Jonah, we were having a little pre-show talk. Rebels, to me, when it came out, my brother was really into it. He was younger than me. It was on Disney XD. I was a teen, so I was a little bit more like, I'm not watching my brother's show. That's a kid's show. I'm not watching that. And I mean, it ended up getting my brother and I into some arguments because we'd be watching Revenge of the Sith, and he'd be like, "Where's Ahsoka?" And I'd be like, "Who the heck's Ahsoka?" He'd say Anakin's apprentice. I'm like, Anakin doesn't have an apprentice. Anakin is an apprentice. Get it right.
Impossible.
And we'd have this like fight about like Anakin having an apprentice or not. And then eventually he showed me the Clone Wars movie and the show and stuff like that. So I became a little bit more familiar, but it just never hooked me personally. So with that said, with our now background going into this defined, Ahsoka, the series, I believe, got announced back in 2020 during the Disney presentation of the Investors Day. So when Ahsoka gets announced, first of all, actually, let's go back a little bit more. When Ahsoka first pops up in Mandalorian season 2, are you guys jazzed when you see her, or are you kind of like me, where you're like, "Oh, is that the animated woman from my brother's show?" How are you feeling? I'll start with you this time, Jonah. How are you feeling when Ahsoka and also now played by Rosario Dawson popped up in Mandalorian season 2? How are you feeling about that?
Incredible actress, by the way. I love Rosario Dawson. I love her in pretty much anything she's ever been in. I was hyped. I can take you back to the exact day. I was working at Target at the time. I was working an overnight shift, and the show dropped, so I conveniently went on break at that time and sat there with my phone up watching it. And the minute that she showed up on screen, I was so excited. I said, heck yeah, she looks exactly like Ahsoka. I know a couple people I've had conversations with were not as excited because she seems a little more dialed back, but she's older. And so no wonder she's not going to be as high, high energy and spunky as she was when she was a kid, because she's like, what, 40, 50 years old by this time. So she's weathered. And I was entranced with her from the start. And I remember afterwards talking to one of my coworkers and going, I sure hope they do something else with her as opposed to just a one-time show up in a season 2 and disappear. I loved her. So all positivity.
All right. How about you, Frank?
Yes. Yeah, for me, I started watching The Mandalorian, I want to say, like, moments after season 2 came up. And so just after season 2 premiered and all the episodes were available, I saw it through. And mind you, and I've already seen Clone Wars at the time. It was a huge surprise. I went and I think it was like what chapter 13, somewhere in the later episode in the season 2 that she showed up, and it was surprising. I can't remember the last time before that where I was like so fully invested in an episode like that, because Ahsoka is a likable character that you just grow with, and once you see Clone Wars, like you just have this investment where you want to see her, you just want to see her in a film, and it's sad to note that she did not show up, like not even in the Skywalker trilogy. So it's been, I still remember that reaction. And going to what you just said, Jonah, the difference between her development as a character and as a person when she first appeared as this very driven, very cunning, and I want to say similar to how Anakin was, and very keen and witty. She still has that same quality, and now we're seeing this more older, grown, mature kind of person who, by the way, she spends like 75% of the time in the first episode with her arms crossed, and I thought that was just funny to notice.
No, it was too many times. It was too many.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and so you can right there, you could just tell, like, wow, this is her journey from the time when we first saw her in Clone Wars. It's incredible. So yeah,
that's awesome. So now let's jump forward to the show gets announced. Ahsoka is being announced. Where's your excitement level at when you hear that announcement? Are you really anticipating this show? Are you kind of like me, where you're kind of hesitant, like, ooh, I hope that show includes me as someone who does not watch Rebels. I hope I'm not lost. How are you guys feeling about that?
So I I think this came out around the time of Book of Boba Fett when they made the announcement. I was already starting my downhill spiral of enjoying Star Wars projects, especially the TV shows. And I was at the point where I was like, okay, cool, Ahsoka's getting announced. I didn't even think that they were going to make it basically Rebels Season 5 because I didn't know what the story was going to be about. And I was like, you know what? If it's an Ahsoka story, I'm down. But I was already starting to doubt the storytelling abilities that Disney Star Wars possessed. And I know a lot of people talk about things like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are the backbone of Star Wars now and they can do no wrong. I don't agree with that. I think they're human. I think they make flaws just like us.
Boba Fett.
Yeah, so exactly, 100%. And even the Obi-Wan TV show, I feel like that was a show where they could have just, you know how when you're in school, there's something that you could just do the bare minimum on and just get an A? That was the potential they had with Obi-Wan, where they had to do the bare minimum and they would have gotten an A. But they found a way to just stick a stick in their front bicycle wheel and flip themselves over. And so by then I was like, I'm really doubting that they can pull anything decent off. And so if you're asking Jonah, the Star Wars fan, were you excited for Ahsoka? I would say, heck yeah. But if you ask Jonah, the Star Wars fan who's endured a decade of Disney Star Wars, what I thought, I'd be like, gosh, I just don't want them to screw it up. So that was how I was looking at it.
Well, we got someone to add to the conversation. We got Dark Movies in here now. What's going on, man?
Hey, honest, yeah. What's up?
We're talking about Ahsoka today. So we're kind of talking about our excitement levels of Ahsoka. Do you remember when Ahsoka was first announced at the Disney Investors Day, when they first announced that she was going to get her own show? Do you remember that day?
When?
No.
No.
So when did you first hear that Ahsoka was coming out?
I think when I saw some videos about it. I don't know when, but just saw some videos probably in 2022, probably.
All right. So you got, like, when the trailer started coming out and stuff, you started to get aware of it. So you weren't really following the whole story from the beginning.
No,
were you watching Rebels? Have you watched Rebels?
No idea. No, I've. Who even are those?
You and I, we're in the same box here, my friend. I've never seen Rebels. Have you seen Clone Wars?
Nope. None of that.
No, hey, look at that. All right, so it's like we haven't seen it, and then we
have a 50-50.
Yeah, we're split right down the middle.
Perfect. So let's just get into it. Let's go around. Let's give first impressions before we get into the deep spoiler talks. Frank, we'll start with you. What did you think of Ahsoka, these first 2 episode premieres?
Yeah, and it's funny because it's exactly as one would anticipate upon watching the first and second trailer, when they show the members of Star Wars Rebels, and you would think like it's picking up where it left off. And yeah, there's been so much talk of like how this feels like a live action just Star Wars Rebel period. And I remind myself that and I think for everybody else too, is that this is a show that's centered on this specific character. Like, yes, there are these other that shown up in animated version who also do feel like the main characters and so on, but the first episode, I think it really does a good job at just laying the foundations of the plot itself. And even though it just feels like pretty draggy and that bit slow pace here and there, because there's barely any dialogues in the first and around the middle piece around that episode, but still, like, as far as characters introduction, like, and the villain introduction too, what is brings up that interest. And the second episode kind of juices it up just a little bit more with as far as the action goes. So,
all right, how about you, Jonah?
All right, so I got a lot of hate on all of my social media platforms for my opinion, because I am cautiously optimistic with a side of pessimism. Because I very much want it to still be good, but I feel like as a slightly non-Rebels enjoyer, like it's not like, again, Rebels wasn't bad, but I wasn't as invested going into Ahsoka. There was a lot of things they had to set up or things that they assumed you already knew about the characters. I'll be honest, I forgot most of Sabine's character arc. I forgot most details about who she was. And so I'm sitting here looking at her Mandalorian helmet when they showed it in the side shot, and I was like, wait, I think she was she Mandalorian? Wait a minute. Okay. And I'm trying to piece it together while the plot's progressing. And by then there's like 2 scenes of, like you said, people crossing their arms and just having conversations. And so I'm trying to do my mental homework while still trying to follow along with just a bunch of exposition. And exposition is not bad when utilized creatively. But unfortunately, if you look at the bare bones of the plot for the first 2 episodes, it's the same plot as The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker,
Yeah.
where it's get the map to find the key, to find a hidden planet, to find Star Wars character number X or letter X. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's very much like, I've seen this before. And then she does this Tomb Raider scene where she's just staring at these pillars and just twists them around. And I was like, is this Jedi Fallen Order all over again? You know, like I felt like there's a lot of things that felt very plotting when they could have picked up the pace a little bit to get people's attentions. There's a reason why they dropped 2 episodes back to back, is because they knew that people weren't going to be as hooked. So they needed to lay it out better. I still think that it's going to be a good season. I still trust Dave Filoni enough because of his work with George Lucas and how much of a heart he has for Star Wars. I know he loves telling these stories. And that alone means that I feel like we're going to get something good. But as long as it's not Rebels Season 5 and it's not the Sabine story, I want it to still be Ahsoka centered, because most of the stuff we get in the first 2 episodes is setting up Sabine. And then she gets stabbed in the side, like every other Star Wars character does, and survives, who's not named Qui-Gon Jinn. Justice for my boy Qui-Gon Jinn. That man deserved so much better.
They didn't have the medical tools at the time, man.
Yeah,
they couldn't do it.
That was so rare.
But again, I'm worried that it becomes more of a Sabine's relationship to Ahsoka as opposed to Ahsoka being a standalone character, as you mentioned earlier, Frank. And that's why I feel like as long as they don't do the Reva thing with Obi-Wan, where it was the Obi-Wan show, but Reva got most of the focus for the first couple episodes and it was less focused on Obi-Wan, I just don't want them to make the same mistake twice. I still don't think it's going to break the show, but as long as the Rebels characters are an accompaniment as opposed to the main attraction, and as long as Thrawn doesn't show up in the last stinking episode, you know, like where all the shots we see from him in the trailer are from the finale, and it's this whole time, oh, we gotta find Thrawn, and then we get the Thrawn, and he's like, joke's on you, I was a clone the whole time, you know, whoopsie-doo. So I hope that they make Thrawn more of a presence early and often, so that he is actually threatening throughout the entire series and not waste the talents of, I think his name is Lars Mikkelsen, I believe, who was the actual voice actor for him in Rebels. So I really hope that they rebound from the slow start, and that was a necessary evil to jumpstart everything else.
How about you, Dark Movies? What did you think of these first 2 episodes?
Okay, now comes a semi-hater of Star Wars. I don't like I've seen like, Obi-Wan and everything. I don't like those. I completely forgot. So I didn't even want to watch this. I just I just watched it and just sat like, I don't even know what. It's way too slow for me. It's just many things like Jonah said. Like, I don't even know. I just found it a little bit boring.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it was a slow burn for sure.
Yeah.
If you're a Rebels fan, you'll love it.
Oh
Well,
I've never seen it, so
That, I mean, let's get into it a little bit more. So the first episode, Master and Apprentice. First of all, I mean, the crawl guys. I loved having the crawl because that was something I was really hoping that they would do. I don't know if I ever said it on air, but I definitely have been wanting it since they announced Ahsoka, because that's how you got to bring someone in, like with the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope. It had all the vital information that you were just dropped right into the story, but you never felt lost. And I was like, that's what they need to do with Ahsoka in order to get a non-Rebels fan to get into this show. And I really loved the way that this crawl was presented. I loved the score behind the whole episode, but like the score behind the crawl. I loved the opening of this alone with the bad guys boarding the ship reminded me a lot of A New Hope when Darth Vader comes onto Princess Leia's ship. What did you guys think of this introduction to the show? How are you feeling at this point when you get what's his name? Balin? Is that his name? Balin,
Yeah,
I believe.
Balin Skull.
Yeah, Balin and Shin when they're coming aboard this ship, and what are you guys thinking about the scene?
Frank, you want to take this one?
Yeah, my answer is pretty short. But it's that it really is that same feel. And it's funny because when during that whole sequence, you can't help but like question and obvious. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you know that like the timeline of of the entire of the franchise in the story itself, but it really does have that like okay, like you said, then the New Hope feel, but this time right there in that space station wherever they first arrived when they were first introduced. I mean, there's not much else I can say, but
So,
yeah.
Zach, I gotta say, I agree with everything you just said. However, I would also ask you the question: do you think that Disney, as of recently specifically, has an obsession with showing the New Republic as completely incompetent?
I know what you're referring to. Because they get the call.
They get the
And-
chain code, and they're like, it's an older code, but it checks out, kind of a reference to the original trilogy.
Yeah,
But they're like, let's bring them on anyway. Let's
the
show
Jedi's
our
on
power.
around, but
And then they show up with 4 to 6 scrubs behind him to take out these. Who cares if they're not who they say they are? They still used an old Jedi code. And you're going to show up with 6 scrubs behind you going, oh, yeah, we knew you guys were frauds, but, we just wanted to bring you on and just shoot you on sight right here, even though you have the Force and lightsabers. I agree with everything you said, Zach. I think they started it out beautifully, but it was still just a dumb decision to make these guys look so incompetent because I have not. All right, so this goes a little bit deeper, but I don't like the sequel trilogy. But they had to get to the sequel trilogy eventually, and how are they going to do that? They have to show the New Republic is incompetent. So from The Last Jedi to here, we have nothing that really builds up the New Republic as a thriving form of government. And so because the First Order has to rise from the ashes, the New Republic has to be shown as dumb. And so we see constantly in all these projects of the New Republic doing these stupid, dumb things that could easily be fixed if they had half a brain. And once again, I was reminded in the first episode of Ahsoka that, wow, here we go again. We're again shown that the First Republic or the New Republic doesn't know what they're doing.
I don't know. I didn't think too much of it, to be honest, because I mean the Jedi disappeared at the end of the Clone Wars. A lot of them were taken out. A lot of them went into hiding, even though in the original trilogy, Obi-Wan says that, or Yoda says with his death, the last of the Jedi you will be, to Luke, which was totally not true.
You sure about
but
that?
the retcons, that's what they do to continuity. But yeah, so I don't know. For me, I could buy into the fact that they were like, well, the Jedi disappeared, but there are some out there. Maybe this is like one of those lost Jedi. We're curious. Let's see who they are. I could kind of buy into that, but I can totally see your argument as well that they were just idiots. But
Yeah,
Dark movies at this point of the show, is it keeping your attention, or how are you? What do you think of the opening?
The opening. I was sitting there like, here we go again. Generic as shit.
Talk your talk, man. Yes, sir.
Frank, you're gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it just this is like an ongoing question ever since the sequel trilogy just first came up. Like the questioning around the competency of the New Republic, but also always made me wonder, like, okay, Obi-Wan, Yoda, they were not the only survivors.
Yeah.
Because really, when you think back in Revenge of the Sith and Order 66 happened, you would theoretically just speculate like, okay, most of those that survived, most of the Jedi's that have survived are all in exile. Yoda was not the only one in exile. So I'm, and this is just me with my tinfoil hat, that this show, we might, start seeing, Kanan was one of them also. And we might start seeing, one or two, just show up, God forbid, what's that guy's name? Cal from Jedi Star Wars. Yeah. God forbid if he shows up as a cameo somewhere here in Ahsoka, because if that happens, I'm just gonna be.
You're out.
I don't know what's gonna happen to me. I don't know. So
I will say though, Baylan Skoll is a great villain. We haven't had much of him yet, but I think his screen presence enough. Rest in peace, Ray Stevenson. But I do believe that his screen presence was enough to carry his ability to convince me that he's a threatening villain. And I also like the fact that him and his apprentice mirror Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan a little bit, because it's the Padawan braid for Shin, and they're not actually Sith. Remember, they use an orange lightsaber. An orange lightsaber is what you have to, in order to have a red lightsaber, you have to actually corrupt the crystal and turn it red. And so because it's not fully red, it shows that their allegiance is not to the Sith, but to some kind of mysterious third party. And that raises enough intrigue for a Star Wars fan like me to be like, all right, I want to know, why are you using orange lightsabers? Why are you basically becoming hero or mercenaries for hire? You're very powerful with the Force, but yet you don't identify as a Jedi or a Sith. And I think there's going to open up some opportunities for some potential redemption for one or the other later on in the series, which may give Ahsoka some agency and give her a reason to interact with these villains, as opposed to just being a good guy versus bad guy.
I didn't even notice that they had orange lightsabers.
Hey, me neither, honestly.
I'm like, really? They had orange.
I thought it was red.
I'm putting on my nerd hat real quick. Nerd hat.
Oh, hey, we welcome that.
That's awesome. So that from there we get into Ahsoka's introduction. She's at this temple thing. She's looking for the map of Thrawn. For people who have seen Rebels, because this was a question I had during this whole scene. I liked it. It was kind of Indiana Jones-ish, but why would the map of Thrawn be in this temple buried deep? Because is Thrawn an ancient person, or was he in? Does it make sense that the map would be?
Because the plot demands it so.
Yeah, that's what we're all waiting for. I mean, one thing I can imagine, and it really does revolve on this on the villain Morgan, which it took me almost an entire hour to actually finally conclude. And it wasn't until a friend of mine sent me a video of that's actually titled "We Have Met Morgan Before." And I go, "We did?" And it's the video. It's a video of the episode in Mandalorian where Ahsoka shows up, and I go, "Am I this slow for not even picking this up?" But not only that, we also learned that Morgan is part of the Night Sisters, and I clearly remember this in going back into Clone Wars, where they introduced this group, and the whole thing with Ventress, and I'm hoping that Ventress does show up in live action too, but is there like a connection between the Night Sister and Thrawn? Like, is Thrawn also a sorcerer? Whatever.
Thrawn's not a sorcerer. His only gift is his intellect. That's all he has. He is an alien, but that's what makes him unique, because in both Legends and the extended universe, his greatest ability is his mind. That's literally all he has. He doesn't even have incredible fighting prowess. He is a genius tactician, and that is his biggest thing.
Well, interesting. So, what were you guys thinking of the scene, though? Like I mentioned, I kind of liked it. I'm sure dark movies, it was probably a little slow.
It was honestly, I was just sitting there. Like you said, Indiana Jones. It was all right, and that puzzle thing. Honestly, I went like, because I play video games. Like, is this a video game? Like, what is this turning?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was a little bit slow, but I mean, it was all right, I guess.
So my thing is, they sent those droids after her, right? And it gives her a chance to show off her fighting abilities for people who may not be well versed in Ahsoka. But they have this self-destruct option or ability on them. And if their whole point was to show up to collect that artifact, but they're programmed for self-destruct, how are they going to get that artifact back to the bad guys if the whole time they were planning on blowing up Ahsoka? Because if they blow up Ahsoka, the map ball crystal thing goes with her. Doesn't seem like a genius idea by the villains, because I don't know. Zach, maybe
was that a plan though, or was that just like a last ditch effort? That's how I kind of took it, as things went badly, and so they did the self destruct. I don't think they were like sent there to specifically find Ahsoka and self destruct. I don't think
Okay.
those are. That's
Gotcha.
how I took it, anyways. That's how I
Yeah.
because they lost. Yeah.
Cool,
So
cool.
from there, we get introduced to, or maybe reintroduced, because I don't know Rebels. So we get introduced to a droid called Hugh Wang, which I loved. And then Ahsoka goes back to this base, and we get Hera, and she tells her that, hey, there's a person that can open this map for you, and her name is Sabine. Take us to, I think the place was called Lothal or something like that.
Mhm.
I don't know what this planet is, but they're celebrating the Rebels. They've got the animated drawing of them in the background, which that was pretty cool. And
Yeah.
we get introduced to Sabine, and she's a rebel. She doesn't want to do this presentation. She drives off, which that was a fun little moment where she's getting through the barricades and stuff like that. What do you guys think of these introductions or reintroductions to these characters? As someone who doesn't watch Rebels, I didn't personally feel lost. I felt like they gave a lot of exposition to fill in backstory of how these characters know each other, who these characters are. But for people who did watch Rebels or didn't watch Rebels, how did these introductions work for you? I'll start with you, Frank.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate how they've utilized this so well to just turn it into like this massive Easter egg for those who have seen Rebels. I mean, even if you if you both would start watching Rebels at anytime soon, like you would see like that same highway, that same road, like that's in Rebels.
The tower.
And the tower also. The tower is I think that's where Ezra, yeah, that's where Ezra resided. He used to reside because he was already orphaned. Spoiler, and and that's his place. And Sabine, I think Sabine was living there after he just left. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's where she's residing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I just thought that was like her apartment. She had a little cat thing, and I was like, "Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
Not bad, not bad."
And technically, the lightsaber she uses is Ezra's lightsaber.
Yes.
So when Ezra lost it in Rebels, at the end, that actually technically is his lightsaber.
I kind of picked up on that a little bit when the droid talks to her about how she doesn't train with the lightsaber, and Ezra gave it to you, therefore it is yours. Like they had like
Right.
conversations like that where I was like, "Oh, okay." Like it was easy to figure it out, I would
Right.
say.
I think because they did have to reintroduce these characters to people who may not be familiar with them, as even though they did that decently, not crapping on that at all. I think because of that, they did have to sacrifice a little more pace. And so it's not the actual introduction of the characters that was bad. I think it was because they had to do it in order to bring us up to speed. It did slow down the second episode specifically much more because they had to go, here's this person, here's their relationship. They did it well. Like you said, Zach, they didn't over exposition dump, but in their process of, talking about Sabine and, Hera and
Hera.
Explaining these kind of intro stories without them being actual intro stories. I think it did slow down the pace itself, which is more so of the issue I had with it, not the actual introduction of the characters.
And Dark Movies, you're in the same boat as me. Never watched Rebels,
Yeah.
never seen Clone Wars. So how are these characters working for you at this point?
I mean, it's that scene with that. I think, yeah, like you said, like it's all right introduction. I guess it's characters, it's characters that and the highway scene thing. It was fine. It was fine, and yeah, just I guess we'll have to see more of them. Like, I don't know. It's the
Yeah,
I was waiting for some pop music. I was waiting for some pop music to kick on while she was driving. Like, I'm a rebel. I don't follow rules. I am a rebel. Like, I don't know.
They had
Like,
that.
that's
They
what
had
it
that
felt
rock
like.
music.
Yeah,
They had
yeah,
that
yeah,
rock
yeah.
music playing. Should have had like Jedi rocks in there, you know.
Yeah.
E22.
I need a 1 hour clip of Zach doing that over and over and over again.
I miss those. I miss those when they first started appearing, like those sort of almost jazz sounds that they played. I think what was it in like New Hope?
Yeah.
They played it there. They also played
Return
it a
of the
little
Jedi.
bit. Yeah, and in Return of the Jedi, I like bring back those similar.
I don't
almost
think I need Jedi rocks to come back. To be honest with you.
Oh,
when the lady's lips go like right into the screen, I'm like,
Oh yeah.
gross.
Thank you, extended edition.
Yeah, we needed that.
We really did not. Anyway, so this leads to Ahsoka meeting up with Sabine because she needs to get the map deciphered and all that kind of stuff, and we get the idea that they have a falling out. She was her old apprentice, and I guess Ahsoka walked away from her. And I love the conversation that because I've seen the clip of Clone Wars where she walks away from Anakin, walks away from Jedi Order, and I have seen the last episode of Clone Wars where they work in Order 66.
Mhm.
So I think that helps me too with this conversation. But I really love the way that they worked in her backstory with Anakin and how Ahsoka is someone who she bails a lot. She walks away from things. And she walked away from Sabine. That caused friction. Do you guys think, based on this conversation, do you think we're going to see Anakin? Do you think we're going to see Hayden Christensen
Yes.
pop up in this show?
Yes.
Okay, we'll start with you, Jonah. Why are you saying yes so definitively?
I believe that. Well, I heard rumors way early on when Ahsoka was still in production that Hayden Christensen was on set. That was it's not confirmed. It is only through whispers and little rumors here and there. But word was after Obi-Wan Kenobi, he kind of jumped from that to the set of Ahsoka, and it's either going to be whether it's a flashback, whether it's a holo projector, whether it's actually him in person showing himself as more of a lifelike Force ghost. It could be any of those things. However, if they do that, they also have to explain why Anakin didn't show up as a Force ghost in the sequel trilogy, but that's a whole nother can of worms. So in some way, shape, or form, Anakin's going to get used. Because so help me, if they threw him in the trailers just to get people to watch, I am going to flip.
Hey, you know what? They did it with Luke. I mean,
they know what they're doing.
You can argue that in Force Awakens, Luke did show up, but remember when they had the Force Awakens trailer and Luke does the full-on, Mark Hamill does the voiceover throughout the whole trailer.
They know
I have
what they're
it.
doing.
Your sister has it. You have it too, and all that kind of stuff. So they've done it before. They could have gotten Hayden Christensen over to that set just to record those lines. But Frank, what about you? Do you think we're gonna get Hayden Christensen as Anakin in here based on the mention of him alone?
I always say that if Hayden Christensen does show up, whether if it's a flashback or if it's in the Force Ghost form, I will shed tears. I'll just be honest. And along with that, if let's say if there were to be a flashback, my question would be: are we also going to get a younger Ahsoka? But this time, will it be Ashley Eckstein in the full makeup with that same voice, just to fit that youthful energy?
Ooh.
So, oh man! So if that happens, I'm gonna levitate from my couch and fly over the moon and back.
Most Star Wars fans are easy to please. Just dangle a little something that you remember. Just a sweet hit of nostalgia. Just a little bit.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
What about you, Dark Movies?
I guess maybe, probably. Haven't they done enough cameos in every show? Just
Yeah.
So probably, I've heard the rumors and everything. So yeah, probably, I guess. And I'm just going to sit there okay, sure, fine.
Yeah.
I guess.
So, would you be excited for it, Dark Movies, or would you just kind of be like, whatever?
It's fine. It's nothing really excited because I'm young. I haven't gotten that nostalgia and stuff like that. But so just sitting there all right, sure, fine. Nothing really too excited, but
I think a tasteful cameo is extremely important because as a guy who unashamedly wept when Luke appeared in the end of Mandalorian season 2. Like, for me, it was something about seeing my childhood hero in full blown Jedi garb, kicking butt, taking names, something I haven't seen in years. It broke me to the point where I was like, I'm so happy. This is exactly like I felt like I was 10 years old again. And that use of a cameo was so perfectly utilized. And for me, I hope that whatever cameos we see in Ahsoka doesn't turn into Mando season 3, where we got Jack Black and Lizzo just showing up out of nowhere just because they're happy to be here. And I feel like I'm hoping that the cameos
happy to be here.
Yeah, well, like I'm hoping that the cameos in Ahsoka mean something and they add to the story and are not just there to have jangly keys for Star Wars fans, because I'm over that now. I came into Ahsoka with my mind already made up that whatever happens, happens. People are expecting the 12th Inquisitor to be Starkiller from the video games. A lot of people are saying, oh, Sam Witwer is going to show up as Starkiller and, he's going to be Galen Merrick the whole time. People are making crazy assumptions that maybe it's Barriss Offee from the Clone Wars, or, they're projecting, oh, Luke Skywalker's going to show up. Instead of going down that road again and kind of beating that dead horse, I think it is better as a community to go in with less expectations so that we can be surprised and excited for whatever does happen.
All right. And like, you can make the argument too that like Anakin showing up, that would be a cameo that does add to the story, because it would kind of be a resolution to Ahsoka's story with him. But for the rest of the episode, I mean, Sabine takes the map. She deciphers it by herself in her apartment. She gets attacked by droids. We get this fight. They steal the map. She gets stabbed. That's kind of where the episode kind of ends off. It's not a very action-packed episode. It's a lot of reintroductions. It's a lot of getting reacquainted with the group. Before we move on to episode 2, is there anything else you guys want to add to episode 1? Your overall thoughts, some things that worked for you, that didn't work for you. The stabbing, I'm sure, is a big topic of discussion. So we'll start with you, Dark Movies. To end off episode 1, what are your overall thoughts on it?
So like I said, it's slow, but I think it's fine. Like I said it many times, but the stabbing, I was like, here we go again. Here we go again. And honestly, I was when she unlocked the map, I was like, when does the villain come? Come on, just show me it. When is it? When is it? Just get it over it. But I will say that also I liked episode 2 more than the first episode.
All right, we'll get into that. How about you, Frank?
Yeah, no, I think for me it works. It works pretty well. It's not, it's not like, holy crap, it's great, it's amazing, it's awesome, it's perfect, blah blah blah. No, it's a good groundwork just laid out pretty well for me. And I always tell myself, almost every evening, don't have too much high expectations, because things could go a little bit to the sideways, not so much as to what one desires mostly,
especially on Disney Plus.
Exactly. Right, and that's the boogeyman. So overall I'm excited for episode 3, and I'm also glad that they're finally listening to us, and everybody can watch it collectively at a time that's convenient for everybody. 9 p.m. Tuesday, 6 p.m. for you Westerners out there. So I'm here for it. Yeah,
absolutely. And how about you, Jonah?
Y'all already know how I feel about the stabbing, so I'm not even going to talk about that. The only other thing that kind of irked me was the whole Ahsoka is a wise Jedi. We all know that. And she's like, wow, Sabine really isn't on good terms with me right now. I told her about this map, and I'm just going to set it right here on the table. Don't touch it. I'm going to turn my back now. Hey, where did it go? So, you know what I'm saying? So that was something where I was like, dude, she's going to take it.
She got a phone call. She was distracted.
Yeah. But it was one of those things where I was like, that is one of those little things that the writers 100% drew up because they needed a conflict to happen. They needed Sabine to be pursued by Shin. And to get that, they needed to isolate Sabine. And that was the easiest way to do it, even though it kind of compromised a little bit of Ahsoka's, street smarts, which we all know her to be extremely street smart and very intelligent. And I know it sounds a little bit like nitpicking, but again, I agree with you, Frank, that it still did good. It's not something that you walk away from going, man, this sucked. but it was enough of a thing to carry in my mind going into episode 2.
All right, and speaking of episode 2, we get into episode 2. We start off with Sabine. She's been stabbed. She's in the hospital. Very, very clean hospital, by the way. That was like hurting my eyes with how white that room was. But so here's my take on the stabbing, real quick. So I know the arguments against the stabbings. Qui-Gon Jinn got stabbed. He died. Why isn't Sabine or anyone else who gets stabbed died? My only argument towards that would be it was more so on the side. I mean, Qui-Gon Jinn was clearly like right here. And Qui-Gon Jinn, when he got stabbed, he was in a secluded room with Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan was behind the force field. There was no one else around. When he got stabbed, he just kind of was there by himself and he was dying. Whereas with Sabine, people found her. They have hospitals. They have medical care. Maybe they got her there in time to help her out. So the stabbing for me personally was actually not that big of a deal, just for that reason in particular. But so for this episode, I actually want to hear Dark Movie's impressions on this second episode first, because you said you liked this more than the first one, and I actually enjoyed the first episode a little bit more than this episode. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, man.
Honestly, I just think it's more action packed. If I remember, if I haven't forgot already, yeah, I think it's more action packed. Exploring more things, and basically that. Just more action packed, I guess. Just found myself enjoying it a bit more than the first one.
That's fair. What were you guys standing on the second episode? We'll start with you, Jonah.
The second one was definitely an improvement, for sure. I think that, like you said, Dark Movies having more action helped offset some of the slightly clunky dialogue, and the fact that Sabine heals so quickly. I know they have access to all this crazy tech, but I mean, she very much healed extremely quickly. And I thought that having her cut her hair was very symbolic at the end, choosing to take up basically her place at Ahsoka's side. I think that all needed to happen in order to tee up what happens next. I'm totally cool with that. I know they have that scene where they get the map for Baylan Skoll and Shin and the Night Sister Morgan, which, by the way, is this like the first Star Wars character that has an actually English name? Morgan? That's the first, like, it makes you think.
Lucas,
yeah, okay.
Isn't
there we go. That's true. Lucas 100% an English name. My bad. I don't know. I heard Morgan and I was like, huh, all right. But it, like, I think the whole map thing was one of those things where, like, oh, a new galaxy appeared. It reminds me of like Super Mario Galaxy, where it's like, oh, you've discovered a new galaxy. But I still am excited about the concept of a brand new galaxy, because that allows Star Wars to do something it hasn't done in a long time, which is be creative and try new things and explore new things that we haven't seen before. So that part makes me excited. I think having Chopper was awesome, having him back. Even if you don't know Chopper, you will still get a kick out of the brief little scene that he had where he has such personality.
I don't know who you're referring to. Which one was Chopper?
Chopper is the R2 droid. He's not really an R2 droid, but he's the droid that Hera flies with. That has the little robotic arms and has a very big personality.
I thought you were talking about the cat, honestly.
Oh my god!
I thought so too. I thought it was the cat.
Yeah. So, but again, I thought it was definitely much better. I liked the fight scene with Ahsoka. It was definitely a little odd. I don't understand why movie villains that are undercover have the obsession to reveal themselves before they shoot. But they had those guys that were like, for the Empire, and then they stand up and start shooting. But the other thing was, they were, again, it shows the first the New Republic's incompetence, where they brought on these Imperial loyalists and just said, hey, we'll rehire you to work for the New Republic. You really think they're not going to turn their back on the Republic and switch instantly? Another thing where I was like, come on, man, that was kind of dumb. But it still kickstarted the action scene. And at the end of the day, it was well shot, it was well directed, and I like that Ahsoka is still very much competently utilized.
Yeah, I thought the action was fine. Like, I wasn't really blown away. I felt it was a little bit slow. I don't know what it was. Like, in the movements, it just felt like they had filmed it, and then in the editing process, they, for some reason, decided to make it half speed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was something about, even like when they jumped, anytime I love that you just have a hammer there. That's awesome.
Don't ask.
But like anytime they jumped too, like it was such a like slow movement, and you could tell that they were kind of like on wires, just like waiting to be lifted. Like that kind of took me out of it in the second episode. And to go off your point with the Imperials, that was kind of interesting at first because we saw that in Andor, and I like that connectivity where it's like the reform of the Empire workers, but then you just had that one guy like for the Empire, and it was like seriously, dude, like
you
what?
had one chance and you blew it.
Yeah, you
Fire
don't
that
do
man.
that. You don't yell it like idiot. Like that was something too where I was like, man, if you're gonna kill someone, do it right. And
Yeah.
I just was kind of taken out of that moment as well. So there was definitely things within episode 2 that I did like, but yeah, I felt the writing in episode 2 was clunkier for me than episode 1.
But action scenes.
But action scenes, we got some slow moving action scenes in there. So yeah, I mean honestly, I don't remember much about this episode. If you guys have anything that sticks out to you about episode 2, I'll start with you, Frank. What stuck out to you in episode 2? And yeah, how did you enjoy it?
Oh gosh, no. As you were talking about, as the guy who just jumped out of his chair and was about to attack and kill, I can't help but make a joke of like, okay, if this was like a sequence or a comic sequence of Captain America where people find themselves in a room surrounded by Hydra agents, one of them will jump out and yell out, "Hail Hydra!"
It's exactly the same.
Leroy Jenkins.
Right. No, but out of the 2 episodes, this one I love thus far. Really, I mean the action itself just gets your full attention. And what I like about it too is that it's focused a lot on like figuring out like, okay, what's going on with like the transport, like who sent those droids, and it was enough to not keep a lot of folks, a lot of viewers like just drifting off. It's one focus, and that's it, with action sequence packed with it. My boy Chopper's back, and that was enough to just bring a smile on my face. And here's something pretty interesting, especially when you start watching Rebels, but you will find yourself understanding Chopper in a weird way. Like, right, exactly. Hera, if you notice, Hera asking him, answering him, like a lot of the answers that Hera says matches those exact speech that Chopper says. Like weirdly enough, you would understand like even the simplest phrases. So I'm hoping to actually see more of that in episodes when they come. And Jonah, going back into when you mentioned when Sabine cut her hair, that has the exact same similarity when Kanan did it in Rebels. I don't know if you noticed the same position that she held the knife and all that. So I don't know. She did it more better than Mulan did. I'm just throwing that out there.
We got DJ joining us now, guys. How's it going, man?
Hey, sorry for the background and all that. It's kind of just the way I'm stuck right now.
That's okay, man. We're kind of wrapping up at the moment, but I wanted to bring you on since you're here and get your thoughts real quick. What did you think of these first 2 episodes of Ahsoka?
Yeah, I actually had a lot of fun with them. I was a pretty casual Rebels viewer. Didn't watch every episode, watched a lot of them. And before the show started, I did watch like a recap of all the Ahsoka stuff and all the things that happened in Rebel, just to kind of get an idea of what was happening in case there's something that was going to confuse me. But I really enjoyed these episodes. I really liked the action in episode 2. I do think that we ought to have some justice for Qui-Gon as far as the stabby goes. But,
everyone is
yes.
but yeah, I if it'll keep up this pace all the way through, I think I'm going to enjoy this show.
Nice. Well, I mean, that kind of brings us to, I think, the final wrap-up question. Are you guys going to keep watching? Did these first 2 episodes hook you? Are you excited for the rest of this? And where do you think the series is going to go? Because we end off in episode 2, Baylan and Shin and Morgan have the map. and they're off. They've got Thrawn's location. They're off to find him. How you guys feeling about this series going forward? I'll start with you, Dark Movies.
I will watch it. Am I excited? No, no. And what I think like is going forward, I think it's only just going to be they have the map, Ahsoka and them go find them, and they either get the map or those people get to Thrawn. Is it Thrawn or Thrawn? I don't know,
Thrawn.
Thrawn. Okay.
Song.
I think it's something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Also, I'll have you guys add a rating to it, and we'll do it my way. We'll do a strong recommend, which is like you loved it. A solid recommend, which is like yeah, you liked it. A weak recommend, which is like it had some bad stuff, but the good outweighed the bad. A weak not recommend is not awful, but the bad outweighed the good. A not recommend is just you didn't like it, and a strong not recommend is that you hated it. So for these first 2 episodes, Dark Movies, what would you give it on that rating scale?
I would weak recommend, but weak not recommend. But I think most people are like weak recommend. I think.
Okay, all right. We'll move on
And,
to
yeah.
we'll move on to you, Frank. What did you think overall? Where do you think it's going, and what would you rate it?
Yeah, I think. I think it's up to a steady start, and I give it honestly, I would just give it a pretty solid recommend, and that's all I can have.
All right, no worries, man. And DJ, how about you?
Yeah, so if this was a new viewer, never seen much Star Wars before, and was looking to get their toes wet in it, I think this is a good start to a series to show off what Star Wars is about. So for that reason, I'll give it a solid recommend. Now that could change very quickly. These Disney Plus shows have hooked me in the first couple episodes before, and
Yes, they have.
and completely changed my mind by the end of it. So we'll see
Yes,
how
they have. Absolutely, man. And how about you, Jonah?
By this show just existing, it's already better than all of the Star Wars shows that have come before other than Andor. So that being said, I believe that as long as they don't drive it into the ditch and they keep going and they keep improving, as opposed to doing the 2 great episodes and then flatline, if they do the 2 pretty good episodes and then get better, oh baby, I'm sold. And so I feel like as long as they stay the course, we trust Dave Filoni and he delivers on what was promised. For now, I'm going to say a weak recommend, only because of my hesitations, but I will never judge an entire season until the entire season has come out. I can, judge individual episodes, but I will never say now that, it's going to be bad or it's going to be good, because we don't know yet. So weak recommend for now, but I 100% will be excited if that gets upgraded to a strong recommend.
Nice. All right. And for myself, as someone who doesn't watch Rebels, I would give it a solid recommend. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was some good Star Wars. I thought I wasn't lost. I thought that they did a very good job including someone like me who has no prior background, no prior relationships with these characters. And I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. I think it could end up being a really fun series. All right, members. Well, thank you for joining me for this Members Talk Live episode 4. It was an honor to talk with all of you. Tell people where they can find you. We're going to start with you, DJ.
I'm Movie Time Minute on YouTube, on Instagram, Threads, TikTok now, and I've got a Discord channel. So all those places at Movie Time Minute, you can find me.
All right, and we got Dark Movies.
Hi, I'm Dark Movies. I'm on Twitter or X. I'm sorry. We have Instagram. I'm going to see Cobweb in a few hours, so that I'm posting a review on that. So yeah, just honestly, I don't know. You can find me on YouTube, just on Dark Movies.
Excellent. Jonah?
What's going on, guys? It's Cosmic Broadcast. You can find me on Twitter at Broadcast Cosmic. You can find me on Instagram as Cosmic Broadcast. And of course, you can always find me on YouTube at Cosmic Broadcast, where all of my video qualities are hopefully a little bit better than my webcam qualities. So with that being said, just keeping a lookout for more projects coming out in the future.
You were crystal clear, man. You were so good. You were completely fine. At least on my end. We'll see what
Let's go!
watch back looks like. And Frank?
Yeah, so it's Frank Santana. You guys can find me on YouTube, X, and in Twitter. Twitter, I already said that. Instagram at Optimistic Forever. And I just started a letterbox, so you guys can also find me there where I review movies and TV shows. Hope everybody has a good weekend.
Perfect. And before we head out, Ken, another one of our amazing members over at See For Yourself, he is in the chat right now. He is saying that he would give Ahsoka episode 1 and 2 a solid recommend. So thank you for contributing to that, man. Thanks for being here. And yeah, with that, guys, that question now goes to you. What did you think of Ahsoka episode 1 and 2? Did you watch Rebels? Did you not watch Rebels? How did it work for you? Comment down below and let us know.